This is Hefe with Aavegotchi DAO. We got Senate in the building here this morning with ThriveCoin, and we are kicking off our weekly ThriveCoin syncopator or discussion. So welcome here. Welcome to everybody who is joining our audience. I'll share a link with you guys in case you want to watch the live stream on YouTube, or I see Thrive Giraffe is also here. I'll get you up on stage. Welcome.
It would help if I unmuted myself. GM.
GM. It is a beautiful GM indeed.
Yeah, there we go.
GM.
And so we are live streaming right now. I'm going to share the link in the main Aavegotchi Discord there, so they have that. Share this. All right. How are you guys doing this morning?
Doing great. It's actually 6:30 here in Austria, so but still doing fantastic so far. Thank you.
I'm doing well too. I really enjoyed being on the community call yesterday. I hope it was helpful for people, and I'm also hoping that we can get some people in this audience because there were a lot of great questions that I saw running through the chat stream, and we didn't have an opportunity to address all of them. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, maybe again, shout out to the audience here. If there's anybody who had specific questions from yesterday, please feel free to come up. Or you can ask your questions in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat as well. I'd love to address some of these questions. But also, I think what we could do if we don't have someone coming up immediately is we could actually we're in the same dialogue we were having yesterday here in the stage chat, so we could actually go back and see some of the discussion there, maybe address some of the questions that were asked yesterday even.
Yeah, that sounds great. And, I see more and more people starting to come in the audience, which is great. Hey, Addison and Billy Bishop and Tony G and Graz and OX Sale. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, and feel free to come up on stage and talk to us. It's I think really important to understand that this is our proposal. Like, and when I say our, I mean Aavegotchi DAO. So this is as much you as it is us. It is all of us included. So if you want to say something, please come up on stage anytime.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Is there something you guys wanted to start off with here for the meeting today?
Maybe I'll just start up with a couple of just generalized thoughts. Some people had questions about sort of the aggregate amount that we should be rewarding in a pilot. And, the feedback, and somebody did a math calculation, and which I really appreciated, and said that over the course of 6 months, it worked out to about $50 per person. And, my feedback to the community would be, my gosh, if 1,500 community members were engaging in really valuable and meaningful activity that was equal to about $50 worth of activity, how much value could be created? And I really believe that the answer is immense value, immense utility, immense efficiency in the community. And that isn't, to me, a lot at all. And in a pilot, it's really, really important for us to show how big we can go in a small amount of time. And, that is the opportunity. And I'm happy to talk more in depth about that piece. And then across the board, there's all kinds of meaningful stuff that about any piece of it. So yeah, let's make it happen.
Yeah, and I also want a specific thing I want to address as well is that ThriveCoin or the Thrive protocol is a tool for micro contributions. And I would say once you go to the communities we already support and check what types of contributions we support, you will quickly recognize that we indeed are not we are not a micro contribution recognition tool at all. What we do is we say what we do, meaningful and valuable contributions. And this can go and be more sophisticated. Just to give you one single example of what we currently do at Aavegotchi, just one example. We reward people at Aavegotchi for writing deep dive reports and AIPs at Aavegotchi. And when we say deep dive, this can be AIPs that are 2 or 3 pages long that are being reviewed and validated. And so this is not just about, follow us on Twitter and you're being rewarded. Not at all. This can go, as deep as we want it to be. And so this was very important for me to address pretty quickly here.
No, it's an important point to iterate there that governance and building are the 2 areas of the DAO that are so foundational to the DAO's function over a long period of time that, these are core components of a DAO. The fact that a DAO is able to build things out and also have a governance structure to fund that building and to organize and plan that building. That's where I could also see micro contributions being a huge motivator for people who maybe have been doing these things more but in the shadows, and get them to come out a little bit more and contribute on the forefront of, alongside all the other major community contributors.
And absolutely. And one piece that I want to add to that is that it's not just micro contributions. We want to be able to reward and recognize, we call it thanking, big and small contributions. In fact, from a philosophical perspective, the way that we think about it is aligned with a lot of the work that I did in alignment with the nonprofit and philanthropic community many years ago, which is how do we steward people in moving from being what we used to call armchair activists. So people who love talking about their favorite causes, but they don't actually do anything, to really deeply engaging those same causes. And the way that you do it is that you incentivize, you reward and recognize, you thank people for engaging in sort of the next most important level of activity. So it starts out with something small, and then a little bigger, and then a little bigger and more valuable, then a little bigger and more valuable, and eventually it becomes big, right? And so we want to be able to support and steward Aavegotchi DAO members along the spectrum from, being important audience members in a call like this, to, being up on stage, to taking on a big project, and, finding all the new and important ways that you can be creating and adding value to the community.
Yeah, good points. I'm just currently looking at Dr. Wagme's personal pros and cons list. I think he tends to provide some pretty good insight when it comes to conversations like this. He lists some pros. Pros, many contributors in our community feel undervalued and suffer burnout. And so I feel like this is a tangible effort to combat some of that. Also broadly supporting ecosystem engagement, which is kind of what we're talking about here. And then, also the, good PR also for Aavegotchi if it's promoted as a case study alongside Polygon. Maybe we could attract some new high impact contributors as well in that process.
Yeah. So would it be worthwhile for me to give sort of my own voiceover on the pros and cons? Would that be helpful?
I would love that. Yeah.
Okay, great. let's start at the top. So many contributors in our community feel undervalued and suffer burnout. This is a tangible effort to combat that. Yes. Right. Here's the easiest way to undervalue people. Don't recognize them for the work that they do. And what tends to happen is that if people feel really passionate about something and connected to it, they'll do it for a while until eventually they realize, oh my gosh, I'm not being rewarded and recognized. And by the way, some people are for the work that I'm doing. Why should I continue doing it? And you see that all over sort of the DAO ecosystem right now, particularly in, what many are experiencing as a crypto winter, right? People, will do a lot of stuff for as long as they can, but it's as long as they can, right? There's an end date to that. The way to ensure a thriving community is to reward and recognize people, to honor people for the contributions that they make, for the work that they do. That's how you help ensure that burnout doesn't happen. So absolutely, this is a tangible effort to combat that. And that's a really important piece. Broadly supporting ecosystem engagement, yes. I mean, what ThriveCoin does that is really unique in this space is that we can auto-validate any of theoretically millions of ways to contribute. So for Aavegotchi DAO, it can be hundreds or thousands of ways to contribute across Web3, Web2, IRL, right? We can auto-validate all of that. So when he says broadly supporting ecosystem engagement, yeah, absolutely. The next pro Thrive team and leadership are Chads. Hey, that makes me blush a little bit. You can't see it. Having worked with most of the people on our team for many years, I can tell you that it's a really special team. This is people who have scaled stuff to support millions of people, who have done all kinds of, great, things. But what's most special about this team is who they are. I mean, we're here and they're here because they care and because we care. Our vision, which is to help create a world where real equity is possible, where it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what your background is. If you create value for your community, you should be rewarded proportionate to the value you create. That is why we do this. That's why. And then the good PR, if it's promoted as a case study, I really think we can do that. If I think that the link was posted in the call yesterday, but maybe send it if you can find it and post it. One of the leaders at Polygon shared a kind of case study of our work with Bankless DAO, and it was actually retweeted by Polygon. So tens of thousands of people have viewed it. And I would love to work with Aavegotchi DAO to create a case study. I just think there's so much darn, vision and values alignment. By the way, I tend to swear a lot, so I'm trying really hard not to. There you go, darn. So those are the pros. I really appreciate that stuff. And I think it's also worthwhile to go through the cons that Dr. Wagme mentioned. We risk supporting non-value creating engagement. Yes. Yes. And what I would say is that's actually a critical piece of finding what's valuable. Like if we do this right together, what we're really doing is we're experimenting. That's all, we're experimenting. And we will reward some things that are extraordinarily valuable. And we go, oh my gosh, we have to double down on that, triple down on that. And then we'll reward some things where we go, I don't know if we saw the value there. And that's how we get better. Like, in life and in business, we either win or we learn. And either way, that's winning. And so sometimes we're going to learn, and that's okay. The way that we've built the system is aligned with our expectations, which is as an evolutionary system. We get better and better with time. So I think it's absolutely fair for him to say that.
Yeah, and one thing to add on top of that, sorry, is I think the worst loss is losing the people, the contributors. So this outweighs everything, any potential goes that could go into a less valuable contribution. Losing the people is the worst loss.
Yeah, totally. And then just to kind of cover that con also, I would say, internally within the Aavegotchi community, there is a ton of value creating engagement that's not being recognized that we could still cover. I don't think there's a lot of non-value creating engagement internally, but someone made a good point the other day, making a case out of a different open source, a source cred. I think they were saying was getting attacked by bots who were essentially external actors trying to create non-value engagement and trying to essentially farm those rewards. So I'm kind of curious to know kind of maybe not in a detailed sense, but just a general sense, what sort of protections ThriveCoin puts in place kind of against that sort of thing.
Yeah. So we built the technology from the ground up to protect against bots and bad actors. And we have 5 layers of protection. And probably not worth going into tons of detail, but the 5 layers are sort of granularly allowing the community to have control over rewarded activities. And that control is very flexible, meaning it can change really quickly. The system is actually designed to concentrate activity within one account, which makes it a lot harder for
I think we lost him.
Okay, it's not just me.
Okay. Yeah, Daniel, we can't hear you if you're talking. What I can add on, I think he will pick up where he left off. But what I can say is, well, we have, besides from our 5 layers of security, which are already important, we can work with already existing tools to sort of build. I don't want to call it gating mechanisms, but let's say layers of trust. Just to give you an example, we're working very closely with a Shapeshift, who have received a large grant from the Optimism community to build a rewards program for the Optimism community. And they are absolutely stoked about what we do, and they want to use the Thrive protocol for that. And what's very important for the Optimism community is to integrate with Gitcoin passports. So what we could technically do always is finding existing tools that could, for example, shield, besides the already existing bot and bad actor protection. Just to be clear, we haven't even had one single incidence of a bot having, gamed the system, but we can even add more layers on top by saying, hey, we actually only want to reward people that hold a Gitcoin passport, and we can do that. And so, you can build on top of that. This is just the start, and the potential is it's just increasing.
I'm back, by the way.
Nice.
Sorry about that. We actually have an electrician at my house right now, which is perfect timing, working working on some electrical issues. So this may not be the only time that happens.
No worries.
First, was this helpful, Hefe?
Yes.
From my side?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's very helpful, covering that and the 5 layers of protection, and also the fact that there haven't been any incidents in your operation so far is that's really reassuring to hear that, for people that might be concerned about that. The next con here that Dr. Wagme mentions is not really a con on ThriveCoin per se. It's just on Aavegotchi DAO. Is we have been spending a shit ton of money recently, and we probably do need to establish a budget as a DAO for specific initiatives that we want, whether it's game development, marketing. I could think of 4 maybe broad categories that we might want to, as a DAO, establish a budget. But maybe, I guess I could turn this into a question specifically for ThriveCoin. Let's say this trial run that we're about to do is wildly successful, and we see we did get higher engagement. Over the long term, it can be difficult to, I guess in the short term, it can be difficult to quantify what kind of return the DAO could expect, because it's an intangible return in a way. But have you seen ways where, you know, you guys have ran these pilots and they've been so incredibly successful where that there was actually a monetary return for the DAO in some way? You know what I mean? From spending money
So
towards contributors.
yeah, two pieces. That's a great question. The first is that we have an endowment concept that we're working on that sort of can ensure sustainable funding over time. We actually put it into a draft of the proposal. And then the feedback we got was, let's talk about the pilot to start, and then we can sort of go forward and have a deeper conversation about the endowment piece. But that's one. The second is that we are absolutely working on sustainable funding with the other communities that we're working with. And the way in which we're doing it is through partnerships. So as an example, with ApeCoin, the official marketplace of ApeCoin is a marketplace called Snag Solutions. And Snag Solutions has agreed to allocate 25 basis points of every transaction back to the community, and they're wanting to do it through ThriveCoin. So it goes back to the community, but it goes back to the community through us who offer it to community members who create value, right? So take that single concept of one infrastructure partner. We're working on like 10 with ApeCoin. And the idea is to build sustainability in rewards. Community should be able to build infrastructure that supports ongoing revenue. And that ongoing revenue should be able to support the community. So there are two ways in which we can kind of support sustainability going forward. One is this endowment concept, and the other is this partnership concept that we're working on with ApeCoin, with Bankless, with other communities as well.
That's awesome. I love the partnership concept because at Aavegotchi, like historically, we've prioritized partnerships. We operate in as a decentralized fashion as you could, and so sometimes that means bringing another partner in to cover a gap in, you know, a gap somewhere with their skill set or what they're good at. So um, definitely have partnerships ongoing with Aavegotchi DAO that I think could tie in really well with what ThriveCoin's doing.
And the pitch that we make to partners is a really simple one. You're getting value from the community, right? The community voted for you. They funded you. You want them to vote for you and fund you again. It's not too much to ask for you to agree to give some piece of the engagement, the usage, et cetera, that we drive back to the community. It's a no-brainer. We have not talked to a partner who said, no, I want to keep it all for myself. I mean, they literally are seeing success because of the communities that they're supporting. So it makes sense for them to complete that circle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, this makes sense. And then there's that last one there that maybe we can address. Relies on a engagement from community leaders to identify and reward value. So I think that's referring to the advisory board, which could potentially cause friction or further refraction if disagreements in what activity we should incentivize. But yeah, I guess maybe you can speak to that first, and then I'll share my thoughts.
Absolutely. Anytime we involve people, right, there's the potential for friction. And the way that we deal with this is really community specific. So it's really important that the Aavegotchi DAO board reflect the values of the community. And so after a lot of conversation with the community, the feedback was to have a board that represents as close to all sides of the community as we can get. And so we came up with this concept of having 7 pillars, and each pillar represents a different group, an important group within the community. And if we maybe missed one, then there's an at-large board member as well. And that helps us to ensure that at any given time, we have representative voices from the community. And usually when friction occurs in communities, it's because somebody or some group feels unseen and unheard. And so we're really trying to go to lengths to make sure that across the board, people feel seen and people feel heard. And, there will be, as there are new groups that arise in the community, we can create a new pillar. So it doesn't have to be fixed. I think the most important thing is that the community knows that as best as possible, we're seeking to make sure that they're represented on that board. And the board is you. And remember, the board's job: choose contributions, choose validations, and choose rewards. So it needs to be representative because they will be reflecting that in the contributions that are rewarded and the reward amounts.
Yeah, and Thrax makes a good point here. As long as they're proactive, the advisory board should be able to adjust parameters as we go and make sure we don't waste too much effort or funding on the wrong things.
Right.
And then Senate also, the community also will hold the board accountable. There's as much as we talk about monetary capital in DAOs, there's an aggregation of social capital in DAOs, and reputations are take a really long time to build up, but they can be ruined so easily. And so I think people in positions like the advisory board will just seeing the individuals on that list will be stand-up members of our community and will not be willing to kind of risk their reputations over some sort of a personal gain, because there's that social capital aspect as well.
Yeah, Hefe, I really appreciate you saying that. And that is like very wise words. And everybody in every context should know that. It takes us a long time to build trust and a very short amount of time to potentially lose it. So it's really, really important for us to know that, to see it, and to act in ways that are aligned with that knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking at the crowd here, you guys have any specific questions for either Thrive, Giraffe, or Senate? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Thrax. I'm happy to get anybody up on stage here as well and get you guys as involved in the conversation. I think it was Aavegotchi yesterday near the end of the call had mentioned a really interesting question, and you had mentioned some background in psychology, and so I'm just out of curiosity asking, if we were to incentivize some specific rewards, and the community is now responding to those rewards, say for example, for whatever reason we decided to change the reward or remove the reward completely, I find people will respond to that negatively. Maybe they were willing to do it for free before, or doing it in some capacity on their own volition, and now the reward incentivizes them to keep doing it, but then the reward gets taken away. And so there could be a negative reaction to that. Can you explain maybe some of the psychology behind that, or maybe how you've dealt with that in the past, if that's ever come up?
Sure. I would start with, a core question, which is, what is the definition of community? Is community the expectation that we should receive without giving anything in return? I don't think it is.
Yeah, no.
Right. I think community is something much larger than that. It's the recognition that we're all in this together, and that if we're all in this together, then it is appropriate and okay to have the expectation that we are better, we are more valuable as a whole, and that should be reflected in the experiences of each of us. And so I don't see a scenario where a community starts to realize that, oh my gosh, we're creating more of a value, we're more efficient, we're creating more utility together, we're having fun, and we're being honored for that, we're being rewarded, we're being recognized for that. I don't see a scenario where the community goes, let's stop honoring each other, let's stop rewarding each other. Let's stop recognizing each other. Sure. I mean, theoretically, if you take everything away from people, then they're probably not going to feel so good about that. But why would we take away the opportunity to honor people? You may decide that you don't want to do it with ThriveCoin. We'll do everything in our power to show that like we're an essential core part of your infrastructure, but that may be a decision of yours. Maybe you don't want to do it with ThriveCoin, but you're not going to want to stop honoring people, right? That's not going to happen. Maybe you'll find a different way to do it that better fits Aavegotchi, and that's okay. But it'll continue moving forward, and you'll see the fruits of that labor.
Yeah, and I will say that right now, if that was a spectrum, we're definitely on the other end of the spectrum where we're not doing enough to honor people, and so going back to your point earlier, it's worse to not honor somebody in the community who's a genuine contributor and have them turn away and leave, than honoring the community as a whole a little bit too much and having to adjust rewards. It's I think the latter is a lesser of an issue for sure. And I think one thing that I've experienced personally that's happened in the last 6 months, where I think something like ThriveCoin could really help, is seeing the highest contributors, the most active contributors, starting to get valued for their work in genuine ways. Like, for myself, speaking personally, getting a bounty to actually help with hosting DAO community initiatives, doing coordination for the DAO, and some other people getting funded for their projects. Like, we're starting to see the DAO get its legs and starting to recognize its highest contributors. But now what we're starting to see is the I wouldn't say lesser contributors, but people contributing in the shadows, or maybe their contributions have not been so out there obvious, starting to feel a little slighted, because it's like, well, there's that guy getting paid for his project, or he just got funded to do this for the DAO. And here I am, what am I doing writing this newsletter every week? I'm doing it for free. And it's like, well, maybe that guy should be getting recognized for his rewards. Maybe the guy who shows up and writes really great forum posts should get recognized.
Yeah, I mean, you're making a good point. In this world, typically, the person who speaks the loudest and bangs their chest the hardest gets the most access. My own perspective is that that's bullshit, because that isn't at all correlated with value, right? Like, yeah. I'm in spaces, if I'm just a guy, I'm going to be one of the less likely people to speak, just because it's sort of my nature to not want to kind of bang my chest or shout. But if I'm in community, I have a strong desire to create immense value, and my desire would also be for that to be seen. And what ThriveCoin is really trying to do is to level the playing field.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what your background is. If you create value for Aavegotchi DAO, you will be rewarded proportionate to the value you create. And when we do that, and we've seen this in other communities, it is highly likely that a much larger percentage of people are going to start feeling really good about the contributions that they're making. And by the way, we need people who speak really loud and bang their chest. They actually fulfill an important function. I'm not saying that they're not important. They are. But so is everyone else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And what I would add on that is, for me, like, this is really close to my heart, because I think we have to get the fundamentals right within Web3. And one of those fundamentals is to design a system where we don't lose track of what people do. And I, I don't know how to express it. Maybe it's a language barrier, but it's just, I fear the space failing because we let too much slip through. And what it will end up is that we will have higher concentration towards a really small minority of people. And we will actually create a world we don't want, which will be a higher centralization towards a certain amount of cohorts of people, and it will be actually not what Web3 was intended to, and the whole ethos intended to, like decentralizing and distributing equity to people who make an impact, who devote their lives to communities, to a cause, right? Put in time and work and get better and level up. And so one of those fundamentals is to design this base layer of capturing those contributions and, ideally rewarding them with governance rights and with your token to recognize them, to thank them, and to ensure that they can continue. Just to give you an example, I was at East Zurich. I came back today. By the way, I had an 8 hours car drive. Was one hell of a drive, but I was visiting a fellow Bankless DAO friend. Mr. V is his name. He is now also on the ThriveCoin leaderboard because he hasn't had connected his wallet yet to ThriveCoin. And I was like, you haven't done that? So you actually missed 2 seasons. He said, I wasn't aware of it. I'm like, please go ahead and do that. I'm sure you did something that you will be recognized and rewarded for. And he connected his wallet, and all of a sudden he saw all the things he did, and he was like, I did this? I didn't even know that. And he ended up 5th in the leaderboard for this season.
Wow.
And if you look at the Bankless prize pool, there are some insane prizes. Like it's really insane. And so 2 hours later, he was like, man, you really got me. It's like, I want to figure out what I can do more. And then he started ideating. Why don't we, you could do this, did you think about doing it in this way? And so the whole ideation process starts. But what I won't forget, and I will end with this, is his eyes, because I was literally next to him when he was connecting to ThriveCoin with his wallet, verifying his accounts on Discord and everything, and saw what he did and the thank you notes and everything. It was just, he wanted more and he wanted to continue, and he really felt recognized and appreciated. And so I think this is the base layer, right? This is what community members have to feel like in order to keep going. Everyone, doesn't matter, as Daniel has said, where you are, who you are, or what your background is, right? Doesn't matter if you're a dog, doesn't matter if you can bang your chest or not, right? It has to be this way, as far as I can tell. And so, yeah.
That's a great story, man.
Yeah, no, that really does kind of portray like how we're maybe not as, even as major contributors, not even aware of to the length of our impact in the DAO. So seeing that, generated live in front of you is definitely very insightful.
And the reason why he actually he scaled down his contributions in the last 2 seasons, because he wasn't being properly recognized within the DAO, and he missed a bunch of the announcements and engagements, and kind of missed that we what we do actually with ThriveCoin. But he still, despite being quote unquote less active, did actually a lot that was really valuable to the DAO, which was kind of cool and frightening at the same time, because it was like, hey, I'm not doing that much. And then he ends up 5th in the leaderboard. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah, this is me relaxing, right? It's like, yeah, you're still 5th on the whole leaderboard.
There we go. This is what you do. And so, yeah.
No, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, there seems to be some, I see Musashi in the comments there, hate that squeaky wheels get the grease. So I started with source cred back in metagame. So yeah, he's just commenting on the point that you guys just made, how, the loudest in the room is sometimes the one that gets rewarded, and then other people do not get noticed. That's a big issue within DAOs. And so we want to we want to make sure that we're not pull ladder up and not giving others an opportunity to really show their value they're providing.
Thanks, Thrax, for calling me out, man.
Do we have any other questions, comments, anything specific regarding ThriveCoin that you guys might want them to discuss or dig into, deep dive into here?
On my side, just know that we really care. Your feedback is really important, and it'll be baked into the proposal. And even if you don't get your feedback in at this point, as you start to experience being rewarded and recognized, being thanked for the contributions that you make, please keep giving feedback. And there's really cool stuff like Apecoin for right now. Literally rewards people for being on this kind of thing. Just being there, they get ape. If they speak, they get ape. If they take a valued role, like playing the role of secretary or playing a different role in the call, they get ape, and on and on. And so the hope is that, as you realize that you can actually be rewarded for sharing your thoughts, your feedback, your brainstorms, that these spaces are going to get way more animated and excited. You're valued now, at least conceptually, but you're going to really know you're valued. And, hopefully that'll be quite meaningful to you.
Yeah, and like you mentioned there at the start there, it's an iterative process. It gradually improves over time as more processes are recognized, as more value contributing efforts are recognized, more people get included in that. So
yeah.
Well, that was awesome. If there are any other questions here, we're happy to take them. Otherwise, I would also like to thank you guys for taking the time here on many Mondays now, running through the ThriveCoin proposal, helping us really understand what it is you guys do, and really giving us some great examples as well of what's worked really well in the past. So.
Yeah, of course. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate everybody being here. Senad?
Yeah, just wanted to say, kind of giving like a bit more perspective or a lens for going forward, is we're holding this thing Aavegotchi weekly meetings, and during this proposal sort of voting process, I would say, or where we try and get the approval from the rest of the community. We are here to for the questions and debates and everything, and just synchronously going into everything, besides always being open async, and our chats, I think both Daniel and my DMs are always open. Once once the partnership is being established, those calls here turn eventually into contribution brainstorming things. So we have one of our community leads at ThriveCoin, who is Above Average Joe, who, by the way, worked very, very closely with some of your core members here. I think Bowdy Nerd knows him, and some others, which is pretty dope. So, I can't wait for the synergies, who will then, help us support the community. And so, once we pass snapshot, fingers crossed, and sort of officially work together and integrate with the Thrive protocol, there will be a bunch of time to brainstorm contribution types together here with some more ThriveCoin team members. So I hope you're excited for that, and we're really looking forward to it. So yeah.
Awesome. So is the Signal proposal, is it officially live at this point?
I think we're about to make it officially live.
Okay.
Probably tomorrow is my guess. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, everybody in the audience, keep an eye out for that. Signal proposal will be going live soon, and so make sure you go and vote on that. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody vote on the ThriveCoin proposal, and appreciate you guys once again sharing your time with us here today.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot. Speak soon. Bye bye.
Later.
Thanks, Efa. Thanks, Thorax.
Of course, anytime. Later, friends.